Hi everybody, this is Prateek Shah from Digital Defined, and today we are sitting with a very interesting person called Ashu Agarwal from BW Accelerate, that's Business World Accelerate. So Ashu, hi and welcome to Digital Defined.
Hi everybody.
And first of all, I think a lot of people out there don't know much about BW Accelerate, so why don't you tell them about it?
So Prateek, BW Accelerate is essentially, globally the first not-for-equity acceleration program, where we incentivize industry experts to come and participate with startups. We essentially focus on two ends at Accelerate. One is mentoring by these industry experts. We realize that there's a lot of intelligence which is already available in the larger business world. And especially when you're operating as a startup in a resource-constrained environment, it becomes important to have that expertise on your side. So we essentially work to bridge that gap by bringing in 350 CEOs, CXOs who are part of the Mint board, who participate with these startups. And second, we focus on is market access. So what we do is that while there's a larger direction that we're taking at a strategy level, at a business level, at a product level, with the expertise from these people, we are then essentially working with these startups on the ground to help them, convert clients and customers. The idea is to fast track them that, by the end of the 3 months that they're with us, there's adequate amount of reflection that we can build on their sheets when they're going and talking to investors. We want that there should be a lot of efficiency, in terms of utilization of funds coming into a startup.
So, do you as an accelerator essentially work as a business partner with these people or as a mentor, or what is your exact role with these companies on a day-to-day basis, let's say?
So, we are everything, right?
Okay.
I think we are everything. We are playing a role across all of these elements, right?
Sure.
So, we are enabling participation of these experts. We are building the trajectory of the company. We are ensuring and working on the kind of milestones that they need to sort of achieve through the course. And we are working with them on the ground to achieve those numbers. Right? So that's essentially how it works.
Okay. And so how old is BW Accelerate now?
We started in December 2014 December. We've officially launched it in February of 15.
Right.
First, the batch came up in April 15. We've just completed the second batch. We're just in the process of opening up the applications for the third batch. So we are about a little over a year old, having fast-tracked 30 companies in the last 8 months.
Oh.
Our first batch success rate is over 80%, with one more raising money. So that takes us to 90%. Of the second batch of 20 startups, we brought 11 to the table. 3 raised money, 6 are in the process of closing the term sheets.
Wonderful. So, of these various companies that you would have worked with, how many of these companies deal in the domain of digital? Or are most of these digital startups, or what is it like?
So, I think we are agnostic. We are sector agnostic. For us, there are a few things that we look at. We look at a very sharp characteristic of distribution in a business. That's very, very important. We look at market maturity. We look at homogeneity. We look at adoption. And that's actually a subset of market maturity. We look at the team. These are certain basics that we look at.
Sure.
While I say that, we've had certain businesses which are offline in nature, which are brick and mortar in nature.
Okay.
Right?
That's
so we've had QSR businesses with us.
Right.
We've had a physical healthcare delivery business with us. But while I say that, digital plays a very critical role, right? Digital today serves as an extension of what you do, right?
Right.
It is something that helps you engage with your clients up close and personal. There is a very strong element of digital across all of these businesses.
So, because a lot of people assume that startups largely mean these digital companies which can be scaled up very quickly.
Sure.
And, they reach a level. So, you mean to say that even offline companies a lot of them are kind of, startup and do involve a lot of digital in what?
Oh, absolutely. I think, for any founder, as I said, right at the start, right? I think you're working as a startup, you're working in a resource-constrained environment, right? It's very, very important for one to have his or her ears, close to the ground, right? You have to know what your consumer is saying and speaking, right? And digital is today the most transparent form of knowing that. For me, there's a huge audit that as a founder can undertake through digital. So I think it's that. So digital is clearly bringing in a lot of transparency even in the offline businesses. And it's a very, very critical element.
Makes sense. And so there's been a lot of say negative news and skepticism and pessimism all around the startup industry. Sure. And the startup domain, not just in terms of funding, but also in terms of the viability of businesses and where will all of this go forward.
Sure.
So how do you in 2016 see this all shaping up, and what would 2017 probably bring to the startup world?
Okay, so Pratik, I think one of the things that we've looked at is we're absolutely commerce first, right?
Okay.
I think so. Even if there's a content business that we would have with us,
Right.
there's a very sharp element of commerce that we look at. And if it doesn't exist, we work to build that.
Great.
Right. So that's something which is very, very important for us. I think what is very critical to understand is that the enthusiasm it is
Maybe
with what's
wane
happening
over time, yeah.
Absolutely, with what's happening globally.
One thing I wanted to know is that how did BW Accelerate happen to you, and how did you happen to become such an integral part of the startup world?
So, Pratik, I started as a banker. Did that for about 6-7 years. I come from a family with business interests, right? So business,
Okay.
essentially grew up in an atmosphere where you started to talk business, right at 11, 12, 13, all of that, right? So, anyway, so when you're doing banking and banking was going through the kind of curve it was,
Right.
you continue to question if this is a viable model or not, right? And with that came my first venture, which was essentially a money manager, a universal money manager that we were trying to create.
Okay.
Right, where one could manage his assets, liabilities. We could continue to give them advice in a digital format, right? So essentially trying to do away with certain critical costs that are there when it comes to money management services and advisory services. That happened, and we didn't do too well.
Sure.
Had to fold up the company, and I think with that was the choice. That do I go back into my banking career, or do I start, and operate within the startup ecosystem? And especially when you work for yourself, right? And you spend those 14-15 hours being in a certain zone. I think it's very difficult to go back, right? It's very, very difficult zone to be in. So I then came back and I started to work with Indian Angel Network, and I headed operations for them across North. Did that for about a year, and I think that entrepreneurial bug sort of bit.
Right.
And I realized that there are a lot of, so while there are a lot of startups who qualify from an investment standpoint that you're working to bring to the table, there are a lot of startups, where you can apply certain permutations and combinations and make them viable models, right? And that's essentially where it started for me from, right? So I worked with about 6-7 companies, that was an exciting phase, wanting to know more about businesses, being on the ground with them and stuff like that. And I say this to my startups as well, right? If hire people from a banking industry, right? Because the kind of pressure that they sort of face,
that's interesting.
and the kind of work that they do on the ground, right? That is something which is there's a method to that madness,
right?
And I think this is something which is going to come in handy for you in a big way. So did all of that. It came to a point I was looking to institutionalize the model, right?
Okay.
And I was talking to a few people, and I was speaking with Anurag, who is the chairman of Business World.
Right.
Right. And he resonated the same passion and warmth for startups and how critical it is to create more and more entrepreneurs. I think there was a match in the thoughts, and that's when I came on board and we worked to create Accelerate.
That's pretty interesting actually. Yeah. And I think nobody but an entrepreneur best understands another entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that all your experience from not just entrepreneurship but banking as well would have come to you.
So I think everything is coming handy. Everything is coming handy.
Yes.
I mean, today, when we're talking about an execution strategy with our startup, right, we would go down very, very deep. Right? We would go down to a level which is actually lesson number 1 in banking called foot mapping, right? So how do you go to a certain area? How do you identify, and these are things that you sort of master over a period, right? How do you get a sense in terms of what is that market going to behave like, right? And I tell this to my founders today, right? So a lot of that has actually come in handy in terms of the kind of work that we're doing at Accelerate.
Companies come from diverse backgrounds and are actually building very different products.
Sure.
Does a program like this actually help them, or is it tough for you to actually manage different products and different genres for all of that?
So I think Pratik, while we are there are two aspects. One is where we are focusing on specifics of that product, right? And then there are certain elements that they can learn from each other, right? So what is the kind of growth hack that you're doing?
Right.
What is the kind of what are the product elements that you're doing? And I think most importantly, what is happening is that a lot of these guys are reading a lot of stuff, right?
Interesting.
They're observing a lot of stuff, right?
Right.
They're trying a lot of stuff, right? And they have their own sets of people that they sort of engage with, talk with, and stuff like that. And I think a lot of that information is becoming available for each other, right? So they're all of a sudden they're, the ecosystems or the silos that they were sort of operating in, all of a sudden the networks have become much larger, right? So I think it's a combination of a lot of these things, and we promote that.
Pretty interesting. So do they get to meet often, or how does it work?
So essentially, how it works is that we spend between Mondays and Fridays is one-on-one, and we spend with them on the ground.
Okay.
Saturdays is a classroom element of classroom session where we would have anywhere between 3 and 4. So people coming in and speaking to them.
Wow.
And they spend all the startups spend the entire day with us on that day. That's how.
So there's a lot of education, execution, introspection.
Well,
and
there's a lot of that which happens, right? So there's
Right.
a lot of that happens, right? So there is a certain responsibility that we have in Accelerator, and I think for us, what is more important is that they engage with each other, learn from each other. I think what is most so entrepreneurship is a very lonely road. What is very critical is that a lot of these guys are available for each other. Through the course.
Right.
So I think we're creating that community.
Community basically.
At large, right? Which is not a community engaging at a tangential level, but a community where they know each other, they can bank on each other.
Right.
There are supports available, the systems available, there are resources available. All of that is happening. So we support that.
Brilliant. And how long is this program basically?
It's 3 months, 14 weeks. It could get stretched depending on if there are certain holidays, vacations, all of that.
And then one has to apply for a batch and then.
We take applications, but for us, parameters of evaluation are very different.
Okay.
For us, the idea is very, very important. Or permutation combinations around that idea are very, very important. And I'll give you a small example of that.
Sure.
So in the second batch, which we
Right.
recently closed, we had a company called, when they applied to us, it was called Easy Shopping. Right?
Okay.
And Easy Shopping is exactly what a Grofers does. Right?
Sure.
Except the fact that this company is, being funded by the founders themselves.
Okay.
And they would do much less a number of orders on a day. Right?
Okay.
And we turn that, and you clearly know that when there is a leader in the game,
Right.
Right, with the kind of funding that Grofers
Right.
raised, and others in that space raised, it usually gets very difficult for a
Interesting.
newer entrant to sort of become
Agreed.
large, right? So we turned that model, and they applied to us, right? And we took that call that we're going to work with that company, and we turned that model around from being a logistics and an e-commerce play to being a kitchen assistant, right?
Oh,
So we said that
interesting.
let's go out and create a very strong reference point, right, on top of which a transaction layer can actually sit. That's what we did. And I
Pretty
think
interesting.
we're doing fantastically well. Now, what we did was essentially a technology peak, right?
Okay.
We made it from a logistics model, an e-commerce model, we made it a technology model. But technology today is, you can replicate technology, right?
Absolutely.
So that's not, the defensibility is not very high as far as that piece is concerned, right? So just to sort of create strong defensibility in the game, we got top 50 chefs in the country to be part of that startup, right?
Interesting.
When they started to put up their recipes and stuff like that.
Wow.
So that was element number one that we created, right? And element two was for us was that how do we scale, into over 10 cities without essentially getting into the executional problems in a
Kitchen
hyper-local
model. In this
e-commerce
case,
model, right? And a
sorry.
groceries focused model, right?
Right.
So then the option for us and the answer for us was in a larger relationship, right, with somebody who's existed in these markets, already has a captive audience base, to partner with them, because then your backend is sorted, you're scaling very, very quickly, and you're growing, right? So for us, it was essentially that.
So it's also brings me to my last question actually. How important do you think partnerships are going to be moving forward in
I
the
think it's very
startup
critical.
industry?
It's very, very critical. I think you cannot continue to recreate it.
Right.
You have to look at existing systems that you can build things on top of, or provide them with and stuff like that. I think it's not as if large models are going to be built by fighting out the old ones.
Right.
I think you can build a lot of.
So you mean to say money and ideas alone aren't going to make the cut?
So
They would be.
I think money has to be. So for me, I think how it starts is with right mentoring. And when I say mentoring, I today would have less than 5% of my mentors who come from the startup ecosystem.
Okay.
Mostly my mentors, who are there with us, out of these
Sure.
350 people, are people who are under 40,
Right.
are at a at a CEO, CFO
Part of the
level.
industry, basically. Seniors in the
They
industry.
have not been entrepreneurs for a certain reason.
Industry.
But their attitude is very,
Is
very
entrepreneurial,
entrepreneurial.
right.
So I think we've been extremely sure of getting such people on board, right?
Right.
You'll be surprised the kind of executional intelligence that these guys bring to the table. You'll be surprised, right? The kind of hacks. So a lot of people say that when you're working with a large enterprise, you're working with certain budgets and stuff like that.
Right.
That's usually not true, right?
Right.
The answerability is of a very different nature.
Right.
The ROI matrix is of a very different nature. So we've been extremely sure of the people of the people we get on board. Do they resonate the attitude and the approach required for a startup, right?
So we're also trying to essentially maybe marry enterprise with entrepreneurs in a way.
We're bridging that gap. We're clearly bridging that gap, right? See, the startup ecosystem in India cannot operate in a silo. Let's be honest
Right.
about it, right? How large are you as an ecosystem? 7
Right.
lakh people, 9 lakh people, 10 lakh people, right?
If you don't get the other
It's
part
about a million,
together.
right? The larger business world is, 15 million, 70
Yeah,
million,
absolutely.
100 million, right? So it has to come together.
So
at
the
some point.
corporates, SMEs, startups,
Oh, all of that
everybody has to come together.
Absolutely, all of that has to come
To
together.
make the startups grow.
Absolutely. So be it a B2C model, be it a B2B2C model,
Right.
that engagement has to be there, right?
Right.
I think most of the models that we've looked at have been B2B2Cs, have been B2Cs, but we've tried to bring in a very substantial element of another B in the game, right?
Right.
Which my startups can build a very strong relationship with and then deliver to the customer. I think that is going to be very, very critical. As I said, and I tell this to my startups, you cannot continue to recreate the wheel. I think you cannot waste resources.
People should stop trying to do that, I think.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that is very, very critical is that sense of profitability has to be very high amidst entrepreneurs
Right.
today.
Right.
I think which is a missing element. You cannot have a model where you say that I'm going to reach
X number of
point X,
users and then I
point
will
X, with number of users and
Right,
stuff,
right.
and then start to sort of monetize. I think that you'll have to introduce that much early on, or the pull in your product has to be so high that your consumers are willing to pay you for it. I think these are things that we try and sort of bring to the table.
Interesting, Ashu. I think that will be lovely hearing about what all you think of startups, the kind of startups you've been working with, and what all BW Accelerate is doing. So thank you from all of us at Digital Defined, and we hope that
Thanks,
you keep
Steve.
making startups grow and keep doing the awesome work you're doing.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks.
It's good being on Digital Defined.
Yeah, we also think so. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.